On any given afternoon in Wimberley, you'll see it. Full parking lots, busy cafes, and people actually stopping in the middle of Ranch Road 12 to take a picture or gawk at something about Wimberley. Tourists are woven into our daily life here in Wimberley. And how we manage that tourism matters to everyone that calls Wimberley home. This community forum recognizes the delicate balance that the City of Wimberley and its partner agencies are working to achieve. On one hand, welcoming visitors to Wimberley, that is, promoting Wimberley, while on the other hand, safeguarding the natural beauty, small town charm, and quality of life that we all love that makes Wimberley what it is. In other words, protecting Wimberley. Our thanks to the City of Wimberley for supporting this forum on the state of tourism in Wimberley. I want to introduce several people from the city tonight who are here. And please rise so everybody can see you. Mayor Jim Childs. Mayor Pro Tem Rebecca Minnick. Council Member Bob Clark. City Administrator Tim Patek. Standing in the back. Development and Public Works Director Nathan Glazer. And I think in the back is Visitor Center Coordinator Gabrielle Snyder. And our speaker, Michelle Woods, is here tonight, which I'll introduce right now. Michelle Woods is Director of Tourism for the City of Wimberley. Michelle began visiting Wimberley with her family back in the 1990s. In 2010, Michelle and her family moved to Wimberley as Michelle opened 2 downtown businesses that are still continuing to operate. And she has 2 children who attend Jacobs Well and the Blue Hole Elementary School. So you can tell Michelle has roots in Wimberley, and she brings a balanced and professional perspective to the subject of tourism in Wimberley. In Michelle's own words, she is concerned about promoting Wimberley thoughtfully while protecting the community, climate, character, and the quality that makes Wimberley special. I'm really pleased to introduce the City of Wimberley Director of Tourism, Michelle Woods.
Okay. Well, good evening. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to see so many people out here. This is wonderful. I think it shows a lot of love and investment in our community. Tonight's topic, as you know, is tourism in Wimberley. What are we doing to promote it, and how are we protecting it? It matters because it affects residents, it affects businesses, it affects our daily life. And while I do think that much of tourism has a positive impact on our way of life in Wimberley, it supports the businesses and restaurants downtown that we love, there's also some obvious drawbacks. I think most of us in this room probably live here. I do. We raise families here, and we run businesses here. So I want you to know that every decision that Visit Wimberley makes around tourism is through that lens. Gabrielle and myself, we both live here and raise families here, so we share your concerns, and we're on the same page. So our goal tonight is transparency. I'd love for you to leave here with a little bit more of a shared understanding. Protecting Wimberley doesn't happen in a vacuum, and Visit Wimberley we're not the only ones that are working towards that goal. So to start talking about tourism, I think it helps to start with where the money actually comes from for tourism specifically. The tourism department is funded by our local hotel occupancy tax, which I'm sure most of you have heard of. This is funded differently than most other city work. It is not a sales tax, and residents do not contribute to it. It is contributed to by the people that stay overnight in our lodging establishments, either within the city limits of Wimberley or within the ETJ. The only way that a resident would contribute to HOT is if they choose to stay overnight in one of those establishments. Also important to note is that HOT funds are state regulated. They do not go into a general fund that can be used for roads, etc., other things that seem to make a little bit of sense, but it's just not that way. The money needs to go directly back into promoting and marketing the City of Wimberley. Currently, we have about 125 lodging establishments that currently pay into the hotel occupancy tax. Let's go over some kind of high-level data. Visitor days. 2025 had approximately 1.3 million visitor days. Now, when I say a visitor day, let me explain that just a little bit. That's a reflection of how long people are here. Visitor days. So that's a reflection of how long people are here, and it's not just a head count. A visitor day is one person in Wimberley for 1 day. 3 visitor days is one person in Wimberley for 3 days. So in 2025, we had approximately 1.3 million visitor days. That represents a 28% year-over-year growth over 2024, which is pretty remarkable. It's important to note that the visitor days does represent a mix of overnight stays as well as day trippers. Those are not all just overnight stays. And we do see some pretty clear seasonal patterns, January through December, which even if you don't know you're familiar with it, you're familiar with them. You felt them. The lows are January and February, and the peak months are typically June and July. This is data that we use to help make our decisions. Looking at some visitation patterns, there are some very predictable seasonal swings, and if we step back a little bit further, we can see some larger trends. We have about 3 to 4 years, full years of data at this point. So 22-23 was the first full year. 23-24, in retrospect, we see was kind of a post-COVID come down. For several years, people were just traveling nonstop. They were working from anywhere in the world they wanted to. And in 23-24 is when we kind of started to see that come to an end. Schools were back on regular schedules. 24-25 was more of a stabilization. Things went back up. 26 so far, it's a mixed bag. We're hoping to see just more stabilization, but it's a mixed bag at this point. We're very early into it though. So this again is just more data that helps us guide how and when we promote the city. Another data point that we trace is our hot gross revenue. So again, with this 3 to 4 year trend, we have seen roughly an 8% swing both up and down, which in the grand scheme of things is fairly stable for a lot of markets. Our average occupancy in 24-25 was 42%, with January and February being those lowest months, June and July being the bigger ones. We have also seen roughly a 14% increase in the average number of monthly payers into HOT. What that means is that there's roughly 14% more businesses paying in. That means there's more STRs in our neighborhoods. That is something that, if you're not aware, there's currently a moratorium on STRs. The city is actively assessing those numbers right now and looking at taking steps to protect those neighborhoods and the places that we call home. We don't want to see them overrun either. So to put all of this in context, historically, Wimberley is very economically resilient. Larger regional and national trends do impact us, but we do see much less extreme swings than other markets. And a lot of that stability, I firmly believe, comes back to our locals. Small business is the economic engine of Wimberley, and people in Wimberley truly show up for their small businesses. And I can attest to that during COVID. It was the reason that we were able at the coffee shop to stay open and alive. And I can assure you that at Visit Wimberley, we will work to keep things that way. So data gives us part of this picture, but there is another side. What are the issues? So currently the themes that we hear pretty consistently are parking, traffic, especially weekends, growth and protecting Wimberley's character, and water conservation. These concerns are very real. We share them, and we don't have an easy fix button for many of them, but we are trying. And let's talk about what we are doing. We'll start with parking and traffic. Weekend congestion through town. It's a nightmare. Parking challenges, and then pedestrian safety that comes along with all of the automobile traffic. So you know, the city does request an officer every weekend to help manage the crosswalks and traffic flow in town. These shifts rely on off-duty officers to pick them up because we don't have our own police department. So when you don't see an officer downtown, it's not because the city didn't request it or we didn't think it was important. It's typically because no one picked up that shift. And we do understand how frustrating that is, and we hear about it. And we are looking at some out-of-the-box solutions. One of the biggest problems is that not just anyone can man a crosswalk. So weekend enforcement does remain an ongoing challenge. But we are looking at it. A shuttle. So another thing that's discussed. This is also something that we're currently evaluating, gathering quotes on. We're looking at a hop-on, hop-off micro-stop style solution. We'd also prefer that it's eco-friendly. We're really looking hard at this because we don't just want a quick fix. We don't want to say we did a shuttle and then it's not something that people use, or it doesn't go far enough across town, or the stops are too close together, the timing is off, the routes. There are a lot of elements that go into really getting it right, and that's something that we want to do. So just know that a shuttle it's on the table. It's not being ignored. One of the biggest tools that we have at Visit Wimberley is better information. We are actively working to set expectations with our visitors before they arrive. We're working on clear guidance on parking options, letting them know about the community center in Oak Park. We are also encouraging this park once and walk more behavior. We are also encouraging midweek visitation. We're actively encouraging weekday stays. We're promoting as the quieter days. Sometimes you can have a better visitor experience when there's not hundreds of people around you. This goes to the idea that we're trying to spread the demand and not stack it all in a weekend. So a few projects that the City of Wimberley is working in coordination with us on. We've got a district-based monument signage project. City Council has approved the concept of some district-based monument signage. There would be 3 districts: Market District, which would be out by Lions Field; Midtown, which I believe will be right by Ace; and then Gateway, which will be out at the junction. So the idea behind these districts is to better identify and promote businesses within the designated area, breaking the town into some smaller but still large chunks. We want to help residents and visitors locate the place that they need to go, those points of interest, a little bit faster. We want a cohesive, intuitive system with clear visual markers and easier navigation. There's also a digital alignment piece of this. We'll be updating platforms like Google Maps. We'll have district markers and pins. Businesses will be clearly identified on all of the digital maps. We believe that when people know where they're going, they can move more efficiently and reduce congestion. We also have an urban trails project. The goal is to connect parks, parking lots, and downtown businesses, improve walkability, ease parking pressure. These trails will be designed to include some educational elements. Some examples of the signage that really stuck with me when I heard about it was as simple as a sign that says 2-minute walk to the Wimberley Cafe, 3-minute walk to the public bathroom. Things that just subliminally put in people's mind, you don't have to hop back in the car and move it. In fact, that's probably going to take you longer than just walking right over. And this project will be designed to expand and grow over time. As far as our parking supply, the city currently owns and maintains approximately 350 free spaces near downtown. That does include Oak Park and the community center. In 2024, you remember the city did invest in repaving and restriping the square. That improved fire lane visibility. It widened the flow of traffic. There's also, you've probably seen these paid private lots that have been popping up. Those are helping during peak times. The city is not charging for any of their parking, so those are private lots, but those are helping. And additional options, such as leasing some private property downtown that the city could use for more free parking. So that's something that is actively in the works. Another way that we protect Wimberley is through how development is allowed and not allowed. And on that note, I'm actually going to invite Nathan Glazier up, since zoning is his cup of tea.
Thank you, Michelle. So my name is Nathan Glazier. I am responsible for enforcing our development code here in Wimberley. So I sign all of the building permits that come through my office. And I wanted to just briefly go over our zoning code, because I think zoning is really important when it comes to managing growth and development within the city limits. So zoning is an extremely powerful tool for government regulation. It's only given to cities in Texas, so counties do not have zoning authority. They cannot enforce use restrictions, but basically a city can pass laws that dictate how you develop your property, and this means where a building can go, how big that building can be, how tall it can be, and then also what you can do on the inside of the walls of that building, so what you can use it for, whether it's commercial or residential. The City of Wimberley fully enforces our zoning laws. Every piece of land within the City of Wimberley has a zoning district. There's 9 square miles in the city limits. 85% of it is single family. So the only thing that you can do on that property is have a single family residence or some form of approved agriculture or religious assembly. 5% is parks and public facilities. So that's going to be the Blue Hole. That's your schools and library and things like that. And then that leaves about 10% for commercial uses. So that includes all of your lodging and a very little amount of multifamily. So our main zoning restrictions that we have in the City of Wimberley is our height restriction. You cannot build a building in Wimberley that is over 35 feet tall or 2 stories. We have impervious cover restrictions. That depends on whether you're zoned commercial or residential, but it averages out to using about 70% of the land if it's in commercial, or about 30% if it's in residential. We have tree protection ordinances. So if there's a tree on a commercial property that is 24 inches in diameter or larger, you have to come to City Council to ask to cut that down if you need to cut it down for your development. If it's between 8 and 24, you can cut it down, but you have to mitigate it by planting more trees on the property. So we enforce those rules. In the downtown, we have a special zoning overlay. It's called the Historic Preservation Overlay District. That was enacted in 2021. But basically, if you're building a new building in the downtown, or you're making an exterior modification to a building in the downtown, you have to get special permission from the Planning and Zoning Commission. It's a permit. It's called the Certificate of Appropriateness. They review the architecture for what you're going to build. They make sure that it meets the requirements given in the City of Wimberley Historic District Design Guidelines. I have copies of these at my office. There's also a copy in the library, but it basically gives instructions on how to build buildings that look like Wimberley. So we enforce that. And we also have what's called a protected waterway overlay. This enforces setbacks as just for commercial, but commercial setbacks for creeks and rivers. So there can be no additional commercial encroachment basically in floodplain areas along creeks and rivers. But we do that every day. We have planning and zoning meetings every second Thursday of the month where we hear these types of things. A lot of them also go to our city council meetings. I'm happy to talk about this stuff whenever. I have a stack of my business cards on the table back there. If you'd like to grab it and give me a call, I'm happy to speak with you.
Thank you. All right. Public safety and preparedness. Well, this is where we have some good news. We have not seen an increase in crime tied to tourism or a spike in alcohol-related incidents. So that's the good news. The main impacts from tourism do remain the traffic and the parking. That said, when it comes to emergency preparedness, this is something that our office is taking very seriously because we have obviously in Wimberley seen firsthand what can happen. And then unfortunately this summer we saw what could happen with our neighbors. We have been working with a couple of different groups on some magnets, and basically the idea being we want to get the information out to our overnight guests as well as residents. We have created, just within the last week or two, we have some in the back, but a magnet that gives you the most pertinent information on radio station and Facebook groups, where to look to get accurate information if there is an emergency. And so our goal is to get those out into every hotel room and STR. It's a magnet that can be put on the fridge, and that our guests and our visitors and our locals too, anybody can have one. We don't gatekeep any of that kind of information. But that they have just gives them a little bit more access to where to look, so that when they come here, we can try to protect them too. We've also got on our website, we've got several different pages directing people to different places. We've spent a lot of work and a lot of time this past year on our website and really bringing it up to date and making it a very functional tool for the community. Gabrielle has spent a lot of time at the desk. Instead of putting a lot of the information off onto other people, we've just said, we're going to handle it. We will update all of the businesses. We know just as well as anybody else, as long as they're up to date, then we know when something closes and when something new opens. So instead of asking those already busy business owners to handle that, we have just taken the step of saying, we got you. We update that website and keep it up to date for the shops, the businesses. And then also we've got some information on there. We have a page that's Know Before You Go. We're trying to let them know things about parking, bathrooms, some of the basics, so that hopefully when they get to town, they're ready. We've also got a couple pages on there that are "You're Here, Now What?" That lets them know where their basic amenities can be found, and in addition, where they can go for first aid, emergencies, several different things like that that we know do and can pop up. Another issue is water conservation and infrastructure. We know water is finite, and we know our growth must align with infrastructure. So from a tourism standpoint, what we can do, our efforts include aligning our messaging with conservation efforts. We're encouraging responsible visitor behavior and trying to be thoughtful about what we do promote. We know tourism can't operate in a silo. We have to work within our limits. So that's, we are trying to take a very conservative approach there. Let's talk a little bit about how we are promoting Wimberley, especially looking into 2026 here at the beginning of the year. Our focus, we came up with a new mission statement for our office this year in our second full year. And supporting our lodging establishments is our first and foremost priority. Everything that we do, we'll come back to that question. And how does this add? How does this piece of material support our hotel guests? We're also trying to promote nature and the arts and our music scene in Wimberley. We've got a very diverse arts and music crowd, and we're trying to always support those things. We're also trying to support our locally owned businesses, as well as some of the experiences that we have that are outside of downtown. The tools that we're using to do this, we have our Visit Wimberley website, which I just mentioned. We did create a redirect. It's visit78676.com. That's our local facing resource. We created that with locals in mind. It was one of the very first things I feel like we did last year, because our full website is visitwimberleytx.org. It's a mouthful. It's not something I expect anybody to just be able to rattle off, but Visit 78676, I think, is something that we can probably all adjust in our brains. The idea was after the Do 512, something that we all know our zip code, something that we could remember. As we went through and updated the website, we looked at it as locals, and every page was designed to where if my husband and I are trying to find a place to go to dinner and we just can't think of anything, that we would want to go look at that. There are lots of filters because I think being able to drill down mass amounts of information isn't always helpful. Sometimes you need to drill down pretty quickly to what you're looking for. So a lot of time and effort and has been put into that website and will continue to be, because that's our home base for all of our information. We also do a weekly events email that also come out from Gabrielle in our office. She's working on a newsletter, but the weekly events emails started because we were hearing about certain events that were wonderful, but they were canceled because not enough people heard about it. And we thought, how can our office help our local groups get the word out? Well, we have the ability to reach 125 short-term lodging operators. So we send out consistently a weekly email with a weekly roundup of what's going on in Wimberley. That way, everything from a jewelry making class at the art studio to a bigger event that maybe a tourist would hear about. But sometimes you never know what a tourist could be looking for, and it may be just that smaller detail. We have updated all of our visitor guides. That includes dining and shopping guides. Those have been updated this year. We will be printing those in small enough batches. We also took the work on that in-house. Instead of having to ask somebody else to constantly update those, we designed those in-house and we print them in small enough batches that at least probably quarterly we do a reprint, and we'll put on the front cover spring 2026 or something, so you know what edition it is. But again, it was about getting the information up to date. And then once it was, now we know we can stay on top of all of those changes. So new dining and shopping guides, as well as a map. We also have a new venue guide that's coming soon, probably later in 2026. That's a brand new idea, but we're working on that and excited about it. And then we're doing new photography and video content downtown. Digital and print advertising contracts with a media company called AJR, and social media planning and scheduling. So our promotional is intentional, is the message that I'm trying to relay. It's targeted, it's intentional, and it's focused on managing demand. It's also based, again, with the idea of keeping locals in mind. Every way that we approach the information is, as a local, how can this benefit us too? So we believe tourism does create opportunity, but it doesn't guarantee instant success. I think one of the other things that is a little bit hard to talk about, but that we're seeing downtown, is opening a business downtown is no longer a guaranteed automatic success, whereas 10 years ago you could have probably said that. The same is true for our lodging operators. There's more competition and there's a longer ramp-up period. I think new business owners should also be prepared to invest more in marketing than they would have in the past. Our goal is to help create resilient businesses and avoid these boom and bust cycles. So another concern that we hear, affordability. Oops. Are locals being priced out? Unfortunately, at this point, affordability is more of a regional Central Texas issue. There's not a lot at Visit Wimberley or the city level that we can do. There's a lot more factors than just tourism that go into this. But we do know that our tourists support our local businesses. They keep those jobs and those businesses thriving. And in addition to that, we also know that if we get to the point where we price out our locals, then we can lose kind of what makes Wimberley special. So that's something that we do keep an eye on. Like I said, there's not too many factors there that we can control, but we do have awareness. So where are we headed in 2026? Our office's goal is sustainable tourism, not just unchecked growth. We want a downtown that works for locals and visitors. We want to help sustain the natural beauty that is Wimberley, that we all love. We want to make data-driven decisions. We have a willingness to adjust. We have a path forward, but we know that we always must be willing to adjust.
I want to thank all of y'all for coming. I particularly want to thank the City of Wimberley, all the staff and council people that have come to help answer your questions. A special thanks to Michelle for putting this program together. And If you're interested in the Lions Club and future forums, stay in touch with us. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Frank.